Hello, podcast listeners. Well, I have a lovely guest with me today, Sandy, and I should have checked in with this. Sandy Lowres, is that how you say it, Sandy?
That's close enough. Yes, Sandy Lowry.
I'll go with that.
I'll answer to anything.
Oh yeah, me too. Well, within reason. So Sandy, for those who don't know Sandy, I'm going to share a little bit about her that she shared with me. And at the magnificent age of 51, she started this magazine called WB40, which I really like. Women beyond 40, not the thing you degrease or whatever with. And it's an independent magazine. She's done it in print and digital, and celebrating the hard-won wisdom of women, changing the narrative around societal views of women who are what I call midlife, 40, 50, 60, beyond. And she has a fantastic podcast, which I urge you to listen to, and I'm hoping to be a guest on at some point, just drop that in. The Good Girl Confessional, which gives a platform to a diverse range of women who share their stories. And frankly, I'm going to hand over to you, because I could tell you about why you did this, but why don't you tell us why you started this magazine and what you're doing and how you got here and everything and besides.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Thank you, first of all, for having me on your amazing podcast. I'm very excited to be here, all the way from sunny Melbourne here in Australia. Yeah. And so I really appreciate you having me on. I think it's early in the morning there. It's about 10 p.m. here. So we're on opposite sides of the globe. 11, is it? There
yeah. What's the time there?
10 p.m. Just after 10. That's okay, because it's, we're on opposite sides of the globe, but, we were just having a conversation offline about that. So, the one thing that joins us all together at the moment is this pandemic, and, feeling exactly. You guys, we're certainly all in it together. That's for sure.
Yeah. But, the other thing that joins us all together, which is really nice, which is what you and I are both about really, is, and in different ways, but maybe not, is this whole thing of, oh God, I have to stop myself going off on a rant. But, like women who get to 40, 50, 60, whenever, what we tell ourselves, what society tells us, and I think you and I are in the game of changing that. So tell me about how you started WB40 and why you did it.
Okay. WB40, I don't know that anyone else can see it. I'll hold it up for Shirley. That's our print mag.
Lovely.
And on the cover of our debut issue is the beautiful Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and within Ruth, I don't know if no one can see it because we're on.
Yeah, can see that.
But inside the image of Ruth is our incredible first Prime Minister, female Prime Minister Julia Gillard, who was giving her very iconic misogyny speech in Parliament. So this beautiful artwork was done by a young Australian artist. Her name is Kathy Frank. I'm going to give her a shout out because she's amazing. I started this magazine, I'll get back on track, because like you, I get really quite passionate about this. But what I found was I was looking for like magazines, print media that sort of engaged me. I am 51, and I was looking for something that wasn't about clickbait celebrity articles or how to lose 5 kilos or whatever in 5 weeks. I just wanted something that kind of really resonated with me and spoke to me as a woman who was beyond 40 and now beyond 50. And I couldn't really find it. And I had decided that we had already started a podcast, and I was inviting all these incredible women on to tell their stories. And then I decided that it wasn't enough. So since I couldn't find what I was looking for, I created it myself with the help of some extraordinary women who have written for this magazine, who have shared their stories in this magazine and on our website. And I'm incredibly grateful to all of those women, because although I'm out here and I'm the face of it, at the end of the day, you know, this is a collective and amazing kind of project, and I'm just really, really proud of it. And I'm just tired, to be honest, of society telling women that once we're past 40, once we're past 50, once we're past 60 or 70 or whatever it may be, that we're done.
Yeah.
And I have a really wonderful friend who is the CEO of an organization, and she often says, #we're not done yet.
Yeah.
And that's it. We're not done yet. We've still got a lot of things to offer society. We have great things to offer society. And as you so rightly pointed out, thank you, we are the bearers of hard-won wisdom. No one hands it to us on a silver platter.
No. And I mean, whilst I love the fact that you have beautifully demonstrated what is possible, you've gone, no one else has done it, I'll go and do it. I might as well do it myself kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is what women commonly do, that whole I'll do it myself thing, but it doesn't always come from a positive place.
That's true. That's true. I, you know, in its infancy, I started a blog, I will say, in 2013, and called it the Good Girl Confessional, which is obviously now the name of the podcast. And it's a very tongue-in-cheek name, which was squarely aimed at the patriarchy and society and how they expect us as women to be silent and good girls and to not rock the boat. Yeah. And I was quite opinionated and had things to say and wanted to get the word out there. So I started that blog initially so I was divorced after a long-term marriage and decided to write about sex, dating and relationships after 40. And then got a very small but really loyal, brilliant following of women who started then to reach out and say, I can't believe you're talking about this stuff really in a raw and honest way, and that, you know, I didn't know other women were feeling like this. And then you realize that we're part of a tribe when it comes to women. You know, we are part of a sisterhood, and it's much bigger than just one person. So the blog evolved to, you know, not just talk about me because that would be boring, but to talk about women's issues and the issues that we as women over 40 and over 50 and over 60 start to face. And so when I decided to turn that into a podcast, because I was really fascinated by and passionate about the stories of other women and what they're doing out in the world. And I really wanted to prove something that I've always known, which is that there are so many incredible women in the world just doing amazing stuff, and no one's listening to them. No one's giving them that platform just to say, hey, here's a microphone, tell us your story, let us know what you're all about. And we've been just so incredibly lucky and blessed to have so many incredible women who have been on the podcast so far. And from that really spurred me on. I think their stories and the courage of these women to really bare their souls and tell their story just put a fire in me to actually create this magazine. As we all know, COVID hit when I started thinking about, well, how am I going to put this together? I really wanted it to be a print magazine because, as I know, ladies like myself, over 40, over 50, over 60, really like to have a print magazine rather than a digital version. So we created it as in both platforms. And the reason that we created it as digital as well as print was because we realized that, you know, we had people who were following along with the podcast who were in the USA and who were in the UK and were in Canada, and that maybe it wouldn't be feasible early on for them to buy a print mag. So we kind of just wanted to cover all bases in that way. So
is the print version that's only available in Australia?
Well, I say that,
so
and but we've had some pretty amazing people who've bought the magazine in print version and had it shipped over. So that's really lovely. But if people want a more affordable version of that, obviously it's far more affordable to buy it in a digital format in the UK or in Canada or in the US. So that's why we did it both. But I will say our second edition is about to launch in February. And one of the writers in the magazine is based in the US, which is fantastic. Some of our podcast guests have been from the US and of course, your good self being in the UK. We're looking forward to having you on my podcast as well, which would be great. But what we know for a fact is that although this is starting in Australia, this is global, and it's a global situation that women consistently, what we're hearing is that women consistently feel like they're being treated like they're invisible, and that the stories of everyday incredible people are not being told in the way that they should be. And unless you're an incredible celebrity, really, once you're past the age of 40, you sort of don't get much of a look in. And we see this happening across the board in the corporate world, in jobs, in media, in television, in all sorts of creative fields. That's a given, and it really shouldn't be. And so we're just proudly trying to change the narrative around that and prove every story, one story at a time, just how incredible women are.
I love that, because while I'm listening to you speaking, I keep wanting to jump in and go, oh yes, because it's so easy. And your podcast maybe is, I love that you went, it'd be boring just listening to me. Well, at the moment, most of the time, that's all people get on my podcast. And I this morning I did a bit of an off on one kind of podcast. Because what I found, I love listening to you talk, and I agree wholeheartedly with everything you're saying. What I found really interesting, and how I ended up doing the menopause thing, was because I began to see, I think it was probably starting with my life, that one of the reasons we become invisible is that we become persuaded by our own bodies, because we're not getting the support and no one explains to us that actually this is to do with menopause, that we suddenly feel incapable and incompetent, and we buy into that hook, line and sinker, and we go, well, that's it, I'm done. They were right. I clearly can't do this thing. I've lost my mind. I'll just stay home, or, do a little thing. And that's not the whole story, but I found that was why I got drawn into menopause, because I thought, no, I can help people stop doing that at least. But there are so many points in a woman's life where we get persuaded, and we kind of join the party, and we go, oh yeah, perhaps you're right. Perhaps I can't really do this.
No, you're right. And as a woman who is in the grip of perimenopause herself, I salute you, and I'm so grateful that your podcast is exploring all things to do with menopause, and that you're actually getting the word out there. I think that's so important, and I think part of our mantra, which fits in exactly with what you're saying, is with WB40 magazine, is that we have to start talking about the issues that really impact us and finding out facts. And why aren't we talking about menopause in a more open forum, in an open context? You're 100% right. It's really fascinating that I started on HRT patches, and while I know they're not for everyone, I can honestly say that a friend of mine had done it changed her world, from feeling really emotional and feeling like exactly that. I don't want to face the world, and I don't want to go out, and I feel like I've lost my mojo. That it really changed her world. And so sometime after that, I tried lots of herbal things. You sort of run this gauntlet of trying to, figure out what am I going to do? Yeah. I knew that I was not sleeping. I knew that I was starting to feel exhausted all the time. My skin was dry. Yeah. There was just all of it going on, where I just felt like, wow, I was gaining weight. And in the grip of menopause and COVID, that was just fabulous being in lockdown with me, I can tell you. So, but I made an appointment with my doctor and went and spoke to her. She was amazing. And that was the thing. I think I had this kind of very, hardened kind of notion of what HRT was, or how dangerous it was, or all the things. And she not only talked me through it, gave me a whole lot of facts, gave me a whole range of options. It wasn't just that. And then, I could make this kind of really informed choice. But the one thing she did say is that she herself is not a believer that women should have to keep going through and suffering, and that people can be perimenopausal and menopausal for, up to 15 years. It's a long time to be feeling like, I don't know where I put my keys and I don't want to leave the house. That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. It's a really long time. And I'm delighted that you got help from someone who sounds like they were really great. But I don't know whether it's just in the UK, possibly not. But the support that women get is negligible. You know, they don't get that. They don't get anything. No one's presenting options. I went through the whole thing. You know, I'm kind of out the other side. I don't know. It wasn't just that I didn't take anything. It was that I didn't even know any of that was connected. I just thought it's hot flushes. That's it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It's only now I look back at what I went through and I didn't even know what the word perimenopause was until about less than a year ago, probably, when I started doing this stuff. Oh, there's a bit. So no wonder we don't get any help, because nobody's saying, oh yeah, you could get this and you could get that and you could get the other. And also there's the classic, which was also lovely that you shared, that you were given a whole host of options, because there is also the one size fits all solution, like try this hormone or this product, and it's nice that women share, oh, this worked for me, but even though we're sharing an experience, we're still completely individual, and my version of it is not the same as yours, and vice versa. So you can tell I get on a soapbox quite easily.
I love that you're on the soapbox about this. It's so important. And you're right. You know, I give them a shout out all the time, but I grew up with this incredible group of women. There are 10 of us. And, you know, we were, you know, obviously kids when we met. So we've gone through all of the stages of our lives, the various incarnations. And of course, you know, we're all going through menopause and perimenopause at the same time. It's really fascinating to see firsthand with a really close group of friends that it really does impact every woman so differently. And as you say, what works for one doesn't necessarily work for someone else. And so I think it is really important to, you know, seek help, go and talk to a doctor. But here's the thing, and I 100% agree with you, not all doctors are created equal in this space either. So a friend of mine recently, you know, she rang me during COVID. She was quite distraught. She just thought she was going crazy. She listed all these kind of symptoms. And I said to her, do you think this might be perimenopause? Because that's what it sounds like to me. And she said that she went and saw a male doctor who basically told her it was all in her head.
Oh, yes.
And perhaps he could refer her to go and see a counsellor. Yeah. And she walked away feeling more traumatized and feeling like maybe it is in my head, maybe I am going crazy. So I would say to everyone, if you go and see a doctor and you hit a roadblock, and I don't care if they're male, female, or indifferent, definitely seek out more than one opinion. Go and speak to people, Google it, you know, honestly, find out about perimenopause. I'm really so thrilled that women are listening to your podcast and hearing about it and having it spoken about so openly. It is not a crime. I mean, it's a natural, you know, thing that all women go through, much like, you know, when we hit puberty, you know, we go through all of those changes, and you know, menopause should be talked about with as much openness, I think, as that, because, you know, it's a lot to go through.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, you talking about GPs, my mind is going back now, thinking to the times that I did go. Again, didn't know it was menopause, but then nobody was steering me in that direction. I can remember, you know, going for painful sex. I've now discovered, apparently, menopausal. I don't deal in that, by the way, if anyone's wondering. That's not my thing. Not that sex is not my thing, do you know? Just the expertise. Oh, shut up, Shirley.
I love this. Although, you know, I'm just going to shout out to everyone listening out there. There's nothing wrong with sex either. So
no, there isn't. Oh God,
but you're right. There is a really big thing, you know, that a lot of women experience, you know, which is, I don't know how open I can be here on this show, but I'm just going to say it. But,
be open.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But there, like there's a lot going on when you go through menopause. And, some women suffer with, as you say, it's painful to have sex, or they go through vaginal dryness. And no one tells you this when you're in your, your 40s even though you're heading for it.
Yeah.
And I've got younger friends, I'm in my 50s, but I've got younger friends sort of in their late 30s and 40s, one of whom said recently, it's a really good thing that you're so open and you talk about this stuff, because at least I know what I'm in for when I get there. I'm not going to be as afraid. Or she said, I don't think I've ever heard people talk about it that much.
No, I hadn't until recently. And, and that doctor I saw was a woman doctor who I think was either my age or a bit older. Nothing. No mention of the fact that this could be menopause, no support, nothing, had nothing for me.
Wow.
I went other times I was really low, and I feel so miserable all the time. What have you got? Nothing. Okay, I'll go and see some hypnotherapy friends. Get myself through it. When was the last time? The last time. Oh yeah, so I'd be to the doctor and a number of different doctors. In fact, all women, I've got to say. And the last time I thought I had dementia, like the classic. I thought, no, I really have dementia. And I'd moved home, moved to a different area, and went to this new GP clinic, really good clinic, great nurses. And they have this, you can go for a dementia test. I'm like, I'm going to have to do this. I think I've got dementia. Went for the test, and then there's a follow-up where you go and see the GP. And honestly, she looked at me like she just pulled me off her shoe. Just made me feel like I was a complete and utter idiot for even thinking I had dementia. Like, why am I here? What's the matter? Oh, you don't have dementia. And that was it. Just go. And it was only like my own, in exactly the same way as you probably, by just not being the kind of person that's going to give up and go, no, I'm not giving up. And then finding your own way through. But when I tell my story, and I kind of am telling a bit of it, it was, I would say 8 years, maybe longer, that I went through all this.
Yeah.
Without any support, nothing, nada, zilch.
Oh, wow. And, that's why changing the narrative around that space, around menopause and talking about it openly and honestly is so important, but not just in our groups when we're having a wine together or when we go out for coffee together. Yeah. It really is important, I think, for people, anybody who's got a platform like yourself. What you're doing is amazing, because talking about this stuff openly and honestly means that women hear it, whether you're driving in the car, wherever you listen to your podcasts or wherever you read your magazines. Like, at the end of the day, if it's discussed, there will be at least one, if you impact one woman who says, oh, hang on a minute, I've been going through all those symptoms. Maybe that's what's happening for me. Then it's kind of worth it. And I think it's really important, though, to get that word out to younger women as well, because it's awful to just get there and say, what is happening to me? And then you have older friends who say, oh, yeah, you're probably going through menopause.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. You're right. But I think the other thing with younger women, especially in the space you're working with as well, is, I don't know about you, when I was in my 20s, 30s, I'm really ambitious, thinking I can nail it forever. What's the matter with you other people? And I had an ageist attitude, not just towards women, but just older people. And if you don't understand what's coming, you don't recognize, this person has not lost their marbles. They can still do things.
Absolutely.
And maybe it's not an entirely bad thing, because I think women are being faced with a choice, which is, I either continue to be completely overlooked, underrated, written off, bad-mouthed, whatever you want to call it, or maybe I'll just go do my own thing and set up a magazine, which I'm not, that may not be yours, but I think that's why the majority of women are the people starting businesses, because they are going, excuse me. For those on video, I just did a rude gesture. Not on video, rather, I did a rude gesture. F you.
Exactly.
I don't think I'm done, but then they struggle with the whole trying to deal with it on their own, of still having to think, am I losing this? Am I losing it? So how did you and how the women you talk to get through their journey? I mean, they must all have slightly similar versions of that story, or not?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's fascinating. I remember, sitting around, all of us having a conversation, and I, having a glass of wine or cocktail or whatever it was, probably a G&T, who knows. And, like just my face going so red and my chest going so red, and me saying to them, this just keeps happening. And people, your friends saying, oh yeah, oh, me too. I'm going through hot flushes and I'm this, and you just think, wait, what? And like, what it is kind of instinctively, but it's really interesting to talk to other women about it and see. There is another podcast here in Australia actually called The Hot Flush, and who are two amazing women who just talk about their experiences of going through menopause also. And I love them as well. Big shout out to those girls as well. And much like yourself, Shirley, who are trying to break down that stigma and actually go, well, let's just talk about it. For me, it was recognizable through, as you say, hot flushes, I got emotional. Like, I really started to get quite emotional, and I found myself crying. I would cry even at commercials. I mean, television commercials, like what?
We can laugh now.
Now I can laugh. But when you're going through it, you think, what is wrong with me? That, I just started to feel, as I said, I gained a lot of weight quite quickly. That shocked me. And, as much as I think there was a double whammy, as I said before, I put on a lot of COVID kilos because we were in very hard lockdown here in Melbourne. There wasn't much else to do except bake sourdough and and then eat it, because we weren't allowed to have anyone over to share it. So, sourdough and alcohol will get you through. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's not advice, anybody.
Sorry, I am not a doctor. Clearly. So I suppose I had the kind of almost textbook symptoms for me personally, but I've got friends who are going through perimenopause and having symptoms, but one friend in particular still doesn't have hot flushes and never has. And it is possible that she will go through it and actually not go through that, because my mum, really, when I look back, I can remember my mum saying to me one day that she was menopausal, and she would have been in her late 50s, and she didn't really get hot flushes. So she, maybe she gained a bit of weight. Maybe, I don't really know, because here's the thing, she wasn't really talking about it. And I remember being young and her telling me this and me going, what? Yeah. Whatever, mum. And this is part of the problem, right? Because it isn't I don't really know what my grandmother's journey with menopause was. I just don't. And, I had one Australian grandmother and one very British grandmother. Neither one of them was talking, let me tell you. And my mum didn't. My mum was a left-wing flower power feminist, and she wasn't even talking about it. So I think there is this kind of perception that we are meant to just put up and shut up, and that we're meant to just deal with. And I think that's why, as I say again, what you're doing is really incredible, because I don't think we should just put up and shut up. I think we should know more about it and understand ourselves, what works for us personally, and how we can then, encourage other women and support other women in their journey, that you're not going crazy. This is real. Your hormones are going crazy right now, and it's not much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And maybe I'm kind of assuming here, and you'll tell me in a minute, but what drove me was not just the whole symptom thing not being done. It was because of the impact it had on my life and the lives of many women, that I felt incapacitated to have any confidence and self-belief to be able to run my business anymore, that I was beginning to talk myself into doing, oh, well, maybe I'll just do this little job because I can do that. And I see women stepping down from jobs that they've worked so hard to get, or or not getting the success in their businesses and telling themselves all the time, it's me, I'm not really up to this, I can't do this, when actually it's because they need to get some kind of help to figure out what the hell's going on with their body and their brain as a result of their body. And then, it's not that they're not capable, it's not that they can't do this, it's that they need to get that stuff sorted and then rediscover, hey, I'm on fire, I can do this thing. Like you did with your magazine, you went, well, I'll just go out and do it myself.
Yeah, and I will say, and I did say this to someone recently, I'm actually kind of glad I didn't realize how much. I have a writing background, but I did not come from a publishing background. So I'm really pleased, to be honest, that I didn't know how much was involved and how hard work it would be, because I do love it. It's a passion. It's an absolute passion project. And, they say if you do something you love, it doesn't really feel like work.
Yeah.
I'm here to say that any woman who runs a small business that they absolutely love, as I am, you do actually work. You work your ass off, but at least, you see why you're doing it and believe so much in what you're doing. But I think you're right. I think there's a lot of women who give up on themselves or give up on dreams. And yes. I think, it's very easy to kind of just shut the door and say, I don't really want to go out there. I'm embarrassed about how I look. 5 minutes ago, I felt like I looked 10 years younger. And that's a real impact of menopause as well. And people don't realize that, that changing our skin routine, that changing the products that we use on our skin, we do change, what worked when we were in our 40s suddenly just doesn't. And I think arming ourselves with knowledge is really important, because, like you and like every other woman who's perimenopausal or menopausal, I've had those moments where I just felt like I don't want to get out of bed and I don't want to do this anymore. And I think any woman who's going through what we're going, what you've been through and what I'm going through, and who recognizes this, let's face it, 2020 and into 2021, it's been a really difficult time for people as well. It's, it's sort of an extraordinary time. So you lump that on top.
Oh, yeah.
And I can understand why a lot of people, like a lot of women, are feeling like really down and like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. So I do think that counselling and, talking to somebody and talking to a professional if you really need it, that's part of the menopause journey for some women as well. And it's actually really important for people who think, well, I'm talking to my girlfriends, but I can't get out of this hole. Yeah. That's not good either. And so I think seeking out people who can help and seeking out people who can, give you some tools to better cope and understand what is, as you say, what is happening biologically, so that you can work out then what is actually happening, from a mental health perspective is really important as well. Having said that, a lot of women go through menopause and they don't have any sort of depression or health issues, but there's no shame in either way. It just is, as women, having the courage, to seek the help that we need, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm beginning to, there's no research backing this other than my observation. But I'm beginning to see the kind of women that I end up working with, or rather end up working with me, are people like me, which is no surprise. But they commonly tend to be, so I'm focused on menopause anxiety, like it's quite a narrow field. They tend to typically be what I call copers and plate spinners. Like the kind of women, I can do this, I'm multitasking, just give me another plate to spin, I can do that. And they've been surviving and thriving, doing that for forever, so they feel like they're pretty invincible. Yeah, I'll just give it to me. Yeah, no, I'll do it. Just put it there, I'll do it. I think they're those kind of women. And I think those are the women more likely to be triggered into menopausal anxiety because they're already running it quite high. Like the revs are already on, like they're always running on revs, and then suddenly menopause hits and it's on the floor and it's like, oh my, what the hell happened here? Just a theory.
I think it's probably true in that, you're right. I think that we walk around really believing that we can cope with everything and do everything. And women in our demographic, over 40, over 50, over 60, we are part of a generation that has been working our asses off for so long, like that we bought into this, we can do it all and have it all. And yes, we can. So we've raised children and worked and been part of a sandwich generation of taking care of children and aging parents at the same time. And at the end of the day, I think you do kind of when you start to go through perimenopause or menopause, that it does really feel like you hit a wall. And, I can understand, like, it does feel like, as you say, when you're spinning the plates, it feels like all the plates hit the ground and it smashes, and not in a good way, like you're at a great Greek wedding, but in a really bad way where you think, I don't know where to even get out of this mess. I don't know, the plates have shattered and I don't know how to step out now. I think that's true for a lot of women. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Shirley.
Yeah, it is. And maybe one day because I've had occasional moments where I think, should I do a PhD in this? I go, no, I don't think that's my path. I don't think that's my path. But I'm sure someone will. I hope someone will do that kind of research, because at least if that were the case, if what I'm saying was proven to be the case, you could plan for it. That's why I talk about building mental wealth. It's building a skill set that enables you to recognize, hang on a minute, that's not a supportive thought process, or that's not a supportive behavior. And women would get better early on at being more assertive, at having stronger boundaries, all those things we know we need, getting better at going, no, I think you can do that. And and I think that's where we go wrong. We don't learn those strategies and we survive with them, and we think we're okay with it, and then suddenly we're not. So
I think that's true.
We've learned it. Yeah.
And I think that comes back to the whole good girl narrative.
Yes.
As well. This kind of, for women to set boundaries and to say no, even in a really polite way, we're looked at it being obstructive. Like if a man did it, it's fine. Men set boundaries all the time. Yeah. I'm too busy. I can't do that. No, whatever. Yeah. But if a woman does it, we seem to be combative. We're bitches. We're whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, we all know this trope. We only have, so much in the tank. And when, you're burnt out, how are you going to help anybody else, right? But we're all guilty of it. So I hear myself saying this and think, I'm guilty of this. I do it as well. We do struggle, I think, as well. Well, I certainly have been known to struggle to set like really strong boundaries and say, no, I can't do everything, and I can't be all things to all people. And I do think we suffer a little bit, and by we I mean the sisterhood of worry. We worry that we'll upset people. We worry that we're not enough. That's a common thing that comes up when I talk to a lot of women. Women worry that they're not enough, and by not agreeing and being kind and sweet and lovely all the time, and taking on more than we can handle, if that, then we're not a good person.
But it's because we've set our value of ourselves is outside of us. It requires someone else to validate us. I probably still am guilty of that. I'm working on it. I'm still working on it. But, requiring that external validation of someone else, and you're right, that Good Girl Confessional is exactly that, is external validation, isn't it?
And we're talking,
good girl, well done.
Well done, good girl, Be quiet. And it is that, it's don't rock the boat. And part of that, of course, and we see it in in print media, we see it in television, we see it in film, the fact that menopause isn't really talked about, the fact that, let's face it, even periods, are controversial still, which is ridiculous. This is 2021. This is a natural, if men had periods, believe me, that it would be, all over sporting channels and everyone would be talking about it and it'd be fine. But there is this kind of thing of I guess that buys into the same as menopause. Women are kind of taught to be ashamed of their bodies and what our bodies can do. So we hide things. We kind of, push it down and bury it and sweep it under that carpet because God forbid we're talking about our bodies and what's going on. Men don't want to hear about hot flushes, and they don't want to hear about, generally speaking, I'm not saying every man, but they don't want to hear that, my missus put on, 5 pounds and she's bloated and gassy and she feels like crap and she's a bitch all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's probably the conversation a man would have if they were talking about menopause at all, right? Instead of, women are going through this extraordinary kind of process. I don't think we give our bodies enough credit for what our bodies actually can do and continue to do for us. And sometimes it does feel like as women, we get the raw end of that deal, don't you think?
Yeah, we do. We do. And you said about the labels that we carry, that they give us in media. I had this conversation just the other day. I might be steering into dangerous territory here, but we had this whole Me Too movement, which is, I think everyone feels like we're done now. Oh, we've done that thing. Women are now, that's fine. We've sorted out the woman thing, whatever that is. But certainly in the UK, they're trying to. There was some talk the other day about either revising or not showing or kind of editing, where they've been showing old TV shows from the 70s that perhaps use language that's not appropriate now, relating, I can't remember specifically, but it might have been about, I think it was about gays. I think it was about gay men. That was it. I think that's what it was. They wanted to change the language that was used around that. And I didn't read the story, so this is all very kind of third-hand gossip that I'm sharing here. But I had a little bit of a moment of, because whilst it isn't right to be using derogatory language and prejudicial language about any group that makes them feel bad, I think when has anyone ever said you can't show that program because they call a woman a bitch, a slut, because she's chained to the sink, because she's just a little woman doing the housework, because no one ever says, no, you can't do that. And so, sorry, that's it. I'll calm down now.
No, but well said, Shirley, because it's actually true. And I think, well, in my point of view, that is true as well. That's my opinion as well. But I do think that there's, it is changing, but it's slow to change. I find it really fascinating that, video games still portray women as, objects to be murdered, raped, whatever, in a video game, and that our children are exposed to that. So, and at the same time, though, it's kind of, then we say, the media will say, oh, you mustn't talk to women badly anymore. You're not allowed to do that. And yet really what we see is consistently in the media, in print media, in television, in film, in theatre, everywhere, that we just see women being treated like objects, that older women are worthless, and really they're just like a sub-character now. Off you go, slink into the corner, you silly 45-year-old woman, you're past it. It's just really rubbish. And I think thankfully it is changing. But I do think that a lot needs to change around this narrative about women beyond a certain age, but women in general. But we kind of need to stand up ourselves as well. And I think it is pushing back every time you hear it in a conversation. Kind of go, hey, it's not on. It's not okay to talk to me like that, or to talk to another woman like that. And you're right. Look, there's a lot of big issues going on in the world, but I do think this constant narrative around women and our place in society. No one ever talks about a man's place in society. Like, they just don't. And so I do think, we have a lot to be grateful for, I think, to the younger women who really blazed that trail in regards to the Me Too movement, because what they did was unleash a floodgate that allowed so many other women to walk behind them through that gate and actually say, yeah, that happened to me too, that you're right, it's not acceptable, this is crap, I should be able to tell my story. There's a young woman here in Australia named Grace Tame, who just became the 2021 Australian of the Year. And she has done incredible work. She is a child abuse victim. She was groomed by a much older man. She was basically abused. She fought him in court and he was jailed, but then they actually put a restraining order on her saying she was not allowed to tell her story. So in actual fact, even though he went to jail, he was protected.
No.
Even though he was found guilty, he was protected, and she was told that she couldn't tell her story. And so she started a campaign called the Let Her Speak movement. And she's done such an extraordinary job, not just for herself and now because she can tell her story, but in changing legislation now that allows other victims to be able to tell their story openly and honestly and to not be silenced. So I think that's kind of was such an extraordinary moment this week when she became Australian of the Year, and so deservedly so. But I think the nominees or the people that won Australian of the Year, because there's a senior Australian of the Year and there's the Australian of the Year is the big one and whatever, but they were 4 women standing on that stage, which was never heard of before.
No.
And it's incredible.
No. And, and especially Australia, because Australia is known for being...
Oh, it's a pretty blokey nation, right? Yeah. So there were 4 women standing up on that stage, and it was, I think it kind of resonated with every woman in this country to see that. It was just kind of mind-blowing, but it shouldn't be mind-blowing. It should be, this is the way it is. We just award people because they're amazing and they've done great things regardless of whether they're men or women. But, I was reading this horrific story the other day. I think it was something ridiculous, like only 31% of these awards that are given out ever go to women. So, that's kind of, and I hope I've got my statistics right. And if I haven't, I'm happy for someone to tell me. But yeah, I mean, whatever it is, it's a massive percentage goes to men and a very small percentage goes to women. Yeah. Even though we're half of, the nation. So it's fascinating. We're still fighting for that place at the table.
Well, perhaps you will get that place and actually be one of those. It sounds like you're starting a whole media empire. You can find Rupert Murdoch.
Oh, listen, I'd be happy to be called anything, but not Rupert. I think I'm definitely the anti-Rupert here.
Yeah, no, who would want to be?
But thank you. And I was recently just on another podcast, which was lovely in the US, and she called it a media empire as well. So that's the first time I've ever called it. So now you're the second person. So I don't know. Maybe you're psychic, and I hope that's true. But we're small now, but I feel like, and you can hear, I am deeply passionate about it, and I feel that especially to give a voice to women over 40 and over 50 and over 60 and over 70. There's so many, as I said, brave, brilliant, ferocious, incredible women who have bloody, blazed a trail for everyone else to come through. And they're the women whose story should be told. They're the women who should be given a platform to write and to speak and to get it out there.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful what you're doing, but I think as well as, perhaps the piece that you didn't mention, I know you're doing, but, it's not just about being heard and being, getting your voice out there. It's about being seen differently too. And I don't just mean that in the metaphorical sense, I mean visually, because
correct.
Just a final thing that you must have found this. I mean, at least you've probably got photographs of real women that are in your magazine, but when you're doing your podcast, do you ever use any of the photo platforms looking for images to go with your podcast episodes?
So I ask the women on the platform to provide, and we video it to it and we put it up on you. And our podcast is now available on YouTube as well. So we wanted a visual medium. It started out as an audio platform, but we are now up on YouTube as well, under the Good Girl Confessional. And that was really important, as you say, because it really was about letting women be visible. In terms of the magazine, we definitely wanted to showcase real women, and women for exactly who they are, and we don't airbrush and we don't do any of that. So for the podcast, even like we ask our guests to provide photographs they're comfortable with us showing. It's not about us just trying to find kind of the best image that suits us or whatever. It really is about diversity, and we're also bloody different as women, that it's kind of important to get that out there. And that's a big mantra in the magazine as well. We wanted to, be able to showcase and highlight women from all different backgrounds, regardless of their colour or their race or the language that they speak or their ability. That was kind of a really big deal for us. And in the second edition of the magazine, I'm really thrilled to be working with Nikki Hind, who's Australia's first and I believe only legally blind fashion designer. She's quite remarkable, but she's coming on board to write articles about fashion, but not in the way that has been traditionally done in print media for women. And so we want nothing to do with women feeling shamed and looking at clothes that they think I'm never going to be able to fit into that, or she's writing articles that matter. So in the next edition, she's written a really great article about inclusive fashion and what does that mean, and has talked to a variety of people sort of across the fashion industry about what does that mean. And I think those things are far more important than, we all like pretty clothes. It's not about that. And I'm not anti-fashion at all. But at the end of the day, as women over 40, 50, 60, there's so many amazing magazines out there if you're into fashion. You can go pick them up anywhere. But what we really wanted to do is really just focus on stories that we feel can make a difference or that matter to women in our age bracket. As I said, so we're not focused on anything to do with celebrity clickbait. I think there's enough of that out there. We see enough of that going on in the media. And we just really wanted to talk about issues that actually matter. So on our website, we do talk about menopause, and in the magazine, we talk about menopause, but we also talk about careers for women and why that looks different as you get older and the struggles that we face. You touched on it a little bit earlier. As women in our demographic, I don't know one single woman who hasn't faced sexism and who has not faced ageism.
Oh, God. Yes. I've said enough. Yeah.
Exactly right. Sorry, I keep moving this chair, but it's
Idiotism.
Yeah, look, I think sorry.
Idiotism.
But yeah, look, I think there is, we're all faced with it. And so I guess if changing the narrative has to start somewhere, then we're pretty proud of the fact that we're starting it in this magazine. And I know there's other women out there doing incredible work in that area as well. And they're the women that kind of fascinate me as well, who, as you say, just kind of, say, well, enough's enough and we kind of have to do something about it. So like your good self, I mean, as I said, to start a podcast and really talk about menopause and your journey is helping women through menopausal anxiety, I think that's quite extraordinary.
Well, it's a start. It's a start. So I'm mindful that it's late for you there. We could talk for hours, definitely. But share with us how people can get hold of the magazine and how they can find you on your podcast, if you can.
Yeah, thank you. So the Good Girl Confessional Podcast is available. You can watch it on YouTube with captions. So for those people that need that, that's pretty important. But you can listen to it on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere that you listen to your good podcasts. With the magazine, you can get your copy. You can buy in either print or digital from WB40.com. And we also have some free content on our website as well, so you can check that out. And really one of the great things about this magazine is that we are giving paid opportunities to female writers and creatives, and as we all know, during COVID, that's been a really tough time. So we're really proud of that. And in the pages of this mag, we were able to highlight over 40 micro and small businesses all run by women. And we did that at no cost to them. That was really just one of the things that we can do to support women in small business. And as you say, you know, there's a lot of women who are doing it really tough out there during COVID and beyond. We're still going, you know, obviously, you know, your nation, your beautiful country is still in the grip of it. It's tough out there for small businesses. And so we urge everyone as well to support women in business and local business and support small business. It's kind of important.
It is really important. Well, thank you again. And yeah, everybody, I think the magazine's going to be wonderful. It already is wonderful.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to grabbing a copy.
Thank you.
But yeah, everybody, please make sure you check out the Good Girl Confessional and WB40. And that's so easy to remember, WB40.com. Sandy.
Correct.
I guess. Right. Take care, everyone. Long episode, but really worth it. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.